Now, the first thing you'll notice is that I've got the worst handwriting out of anybody here. So we covered off this question around data protection, and I think a lot of the themes that you've seen discussed already are probably themes that we echoed quite a lot in our conversation. So I'm just going to run through some of those themes around data protection. We talked around data protection meaning a number of things around data privacy, data protection acts, internal information, consumer information, and security, and the things associated with that. One of the themes that came out was around availability, how you can ensure the availability of data, and obviously around confidentiality, which is probably one of the things that is probably most in the minds of people when thinking about data protection. There's this interesting dichotomy, I suppose, between on-premise and off-premise in terms of destruction and disposal of data. When can you be sure that data has been destroyed, and when can you be assured that data has been destroyed that you want destroyed? There's that change, or that slight difference. But obviously there was a question that came up in the conversation around whether you could be assured of that destruction or non-destruction more effectively in the cloud rather than actually on-premise. You know, data is pretty profligate, so how do you ensure that? Let's just put that up again. Touched on, I think, in the first conversation was around data location, and this actually then led to the conversation around jurisdiction, but also probably the topic that we touched on spoke around most of all around data management and data control. i.e., of those people or those organizations that are putting data into the cloud, how can you be most assured of your roles and responsibilities as a vendor or as a customer of where your data is, how that data is moved around, and how you actually then meet certain regulatory requirements. So both from a point of view of meeting particular acts, the Data Protection Act, for example, in the UK, how do you meet those particular requirements? But also then one of the questions that came up, one of the topics that came up was around evidencing what has then happened with data as well. So even if you can be assured to some extent that your data is in the right place, how do you then actually go ahead and actually prove to regulators and the like as to where data is? We spent most of the time probably talking around that point, but we also came up with a couple of other topics which are probably of interest around access control associated with specific types of data, like payroll data, and the use of subcontractors. If this isn't something that Google specifically does, but some organisations may subcontract services out. So how can you then be assured of where your data actually is if you're then using those suppliers? So how did we come to an answer? Well, the answer was kind of it's probably still up for grabs. There is a risk versus reward issue here in terms of moving into the cloud, and we spent a bit of time talking about things like SAS 70 and trust, and we decided that there were three types of trust that you can have in selecting a vendor. There's blind trust, there's the ability to do investigation of your supplier, and then the reliance on the third-party agencies to try and support the decisions that you're making. And we probably came to a conclusion that you need to use all three in terms of how you're going to make a decision as to your cloud provider. And frankly, I think that the final conclusion was that if a vendor could give all of these things and make it very, very easy and very, very transparent and very, very visible to customers, that's where a vendor could get or a cloud provider could get a unique advantage in terms of helping data protection strategy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.